Let's go! Level up! Stronger!
I grind through the struggle, sweat in my veins, iron and will, I'm breaking these chains, hard like a lion, mind on attack, every setback, I'm never looking back, symphony rising, destiny's calling, every rep, every step, I'm never falling. Level up, everybody level up, push it, never gonna give up. Battle the silence, conquer the pain, sweat on the floor, power in my name.
Tonight on Capital Discourse, we've got a lineup that'll make your group chat look tame. Is Iran about to become more than just a headline? We'll break down what's escalating, what it means for global stability, and whether we should be worried about more than just oil prices. Deja vu in DC Partial Shutdown Showdown Edition, and this time it's DHS taking the hit. TSA agents working without pay, border security operating on fumes, and the question nobody wants to ask, how long can critical infrastructure actually run on goodwill? The Epstein files fallout. America's been silent. The UK is actually making arrests. Meanwhile, the private sector is scrambling to clean house before more names drop. We'll look at why one country's moving and ours is, well, not. Finally, our economic outlook, stagnation, losses, and a paycheck that's somehow both lighter and more tired than you are. Is there any good news out there? Joining me tonight to help break it all down are Dakota and TJ, bringing sharp analysis, real talk, and maybe, just maybe, a little hope. All this and more coming up, so stick around. You won't want to miss this episode of Capital Discourse.
Painted to look like the sky. They tell you be quiet, don't you dare ask why. Your strength is a threat, your voice is too loud. Just another face lost in the faceless crowd. No more. But the spirit ain't gentle and the will won't break. For every future, every soul at stake. Silent scream, shattering the fragments of a broken dream. We rise from the ashes of the hate they sow. A symphony of voices letting freedom grow. The old world is burning. What will you build in this place?
Welcome back. We're diving into what might be the world's longest, most expensive grudge match, the United States versus Iran. So buckle up, because this isn't a 2-year feud. This is a 50-year masterclass in how not to get along. And spoiler alert, nobody's winning. The year's 1979. America is busy dodging falling space junk from Skylab while mourning Disco's pathetic last gasp and pretending the Clash's London Calling wasn't a direct indictment of Western imperialism, and Iran was executing the most badass geopolitical power move in modern history. Ayatollah Khomeini didn't just overthrow the US-backed Shah, he humiliated him, kicked him out, took back a nation that had been puppeteered by American interests for decades. The new Islamic Republic, they were done. So Iran grabbed 52 Americans at the embassy and held them hostage. Not as a desperate cry for attention, but as a statement, we own our own country now. Deal with it. While Americans were glued to Mork and Mindy and Three's Company, completely oblivious to the seismic shift happening in the Middle East, Iran was fundamentally restructuring its entire government, its foreign policy, and its role in global affairs. The best part, worst part, Iran's hostage crisis didn't just humiliate America, it destroyed President Jimmy Carter's presidency. Carter spent 444 days trying to negotiate, looking weak, looking helpless, while Iran held all the cards. The American public watched their president fail on prime time. By 1980, when the election rolled around, Americans were furious, humiliated, desperate for someone, anyone, who looked strong. Enter Ronald Reagan. On day one, the hostages were free. Iran's hostage crisis didn't just reshape American foreign policy, it literally changed the presidency. Fast forward to the 90s, where Iran becomes the architect of its own destiny, and America's worst nightmare. The Iran-Iraq War. Iran fights for 8 brutal years defending its sovereignty against an Iraqi invasion while the US arms Iraq to the teeth. Iran doesn't back down. Iran doesn't surrender. Iran survives. Then in 1983, Hezbollah, Iran's strategic proxy, bombs the US Marine barracks in Beirut, killing 183 servicemen. Message: don't mess with Iran's sphere of influence. By 1984, the US slaps the state sponsor of terrorism label on Iran like a desperate insult. Meanwhile, the tanker war erupts in the Persian Gulf, Iran fighting back against the US Navy in its own backyard. The US shoots down Iran Air Flight 655, murdering 290 innocent Iranians in cold blood. Iran's response: unflinching, unapologetic. While Dallas finally reveals who shot JR and America loses its mind over a TV mystery, Iran's dealing with actual American aggression and responding with the kind of strategic patience that would define the next 30 years. By 1995, the US tries to strangle Iran with a complete embargo. No business, no investment, nothing. Economic warfare, basically. But here's what the US never understood. Iran wasn't weakened by isolation. Iran was strengthened by it. While the world was obsessing over pop culture and TV drama in 1979, Iran was building something the US could never break. A nation that answered to no one but itself. The US thought it was winning. Iran was playing chess, while America was still figuring out checkers. Fast forward to 2002. President Bush gives us the infamous axis of evil speech, because nothing says diplomacy like lumping Iran, Iraq, and North Korea into one villain starter pack. Suddenly, everyone's obsessed with Iran's nuclear program. Sanctions? Oh, you bet. But here's the kicker. While the US was busy manufacturing a case for invading Iraq, plenty of experts were whispering, shouldn't we be aiming at Iran instead? But nope. America decided to topple Saddam and gift Iran a golden ticket to more regional influence. Genius. Then in 2015, the world gets wild and signs the Iran nuclear deal. Iran scales back its nuclear program, everyone high-fives, peace breaks out, and for a hot second, it actually works. But enter Trump, who looks at the deal and says, cute, but no thanks. He rips it up, slaps sanctions back on, and Iran's left wondering if the US even owns a calendar, because it's like 2002 all over again. So much for progress. America can't even pick the right country, let alone stick to a deal. January 2020. The US decides, you know what would really cool things off in the Middle East? Let's drone strike Iran's top military strategist, Qasem Soleimani, in Baghdad. Because nothing says de-escalation like assassinating the guy who basically wrote Iran's playbook for regional influence. The Pentagon assures us he was planning attacks, as if that's ever stopped anyone from making things messier. Global reaction? Pure panic. NPR, the New York Times, and Al Jazeera all basically ask, wait, are we starting World War III? Or Iran, never one to let an insult slide, fires ballistic missiles at US bases in Iraq. The White House tweets all is well, as if this is just another episode of reality TV, 2021 to 2024. We're living in the world's longest slow-motion car crash. Iran keeps enriching uranium because why not? Attacks on shipping spike, cyber attacks become the new normal, and every red line is more of a polite suggestion. Diplomacy? Please. The only thing getting negotiated is whose turn it is to issue the next round of threats. And by 2025 to 2026, we're still stuck in the world's most dysfunctional group chat. The US and Iran arguing about nukes, militias running wild, cyber attacks flying, and absolutely nothing getting solved. It's like watching the Pentagon try to use Signal for classified military discussions. You know it's going to end badly, someone's going to leak it to a journalist, and then everyone's going to pretend it never happened. Spoiler alert, it did happen. Pete Hegseth's Signal chats about sensitive military operations got leaked to the Atlantic in 2025, and suddenly the Pentagon's scrambling to explain why they're using an app designed for privacy to discuss war plans. Genius-level security thinking right there. It's not war. It's not peace. It's just chaos with a smartphone. Welcome to the future. Same arguments, new hashtags, zero resolution, and apparently zero understanding of how to keep classified information actually classified. If you thought Iran's only hobby was trolling the US, think again. They're basically the Middle East overachieving drama club president. In Iraq, Iran's got Shia militias on speed dial, running proxy wars so openly you'd think they were streaming it on Twitch. With Israel, it's a never-ending Cold War. Hezbollah, Hamas, cyber attacks, and drone strikes. It's less, will they, won't they, and more. How many ways can we make each other miserable? How about Saudi Arabia? Oh, just a casual regional feud featuring Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, and a 2016 diplomatic breakup. So frosty it made headlines from CNN to The Guardian. Syria's Assad. Still standing thanks to Iran's bankrolling, because nothing says strategic partnership like billions in cash and a mountain of weapons. Lebanon. Iran basically ghostwrites Hezbollah's playbook and half the country's politics. Yemen. Iran's support for the how this is the international relations equivalent of poking Saudi Arabia with a stick and then acting shocked when things explode. But why stop at the Middle East? Iran's got Europe in a perpetual nuclear deal panic. We're neutral. Translation, we're terrified. While Russia and China are basically the backup dancers in Iran's Don't Sanction Me music video, joint military drills, arms deals, and energy swaps galore. UAE, Bahrain, Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco. If there's a flag, Iran's probably annoyed them. But wait, there's more Africa and Latin America? Iran's out there collecting friends and stirring up influence just to see if anyone's paying attention. At this point, Iran's not just playing 4D chess, they're speedrunning Risk, Monopoly, and a little Grand Theft Auto, while the rest of the world is still stuck on Game of Life. So where are we now? The US and Iran are locked in a standoff over nuclear enrichment, regional militias, and cyber attacks. Iran's got allies in Russia and China. The Middle East is a powder keg, and nobody's talking about actually solving this. The international community is frustrated. Europe wants the nuclear deal back. The US is skeptical. Iran's enriching uranium at levels that are, let's say, concerning, and everyone's waiting for the next escalation. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, the Middle East doesn't just shift, it explodes. Israel panics. Saudi Arabia panic buys bunkers. Everyone else refreshes their news feeds waiting for the apocalypse. According to the Nuclear Threat Initiative, Iran's already enriching uranium at alarming levels and is dangerously close to weapons-grade capability. Trump's threatening to bomb nuclear sites because diplomacy is apparently dead, while Iran threatens retaliation, and the whole thing's basically nuclear chicken where nobody's blinking. Meanwhile, Iran's proxy wars are destabilizing Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon, creating humanitarian disasters on a biblical scale with millions of refugees, collapsed economies, and breeding grounds for extremism so fertile you could plant a garden. Yemen's a failed state. Syria's a war zone. Lebanon's a powder keg with Hezbollah pulling strings. Iraq's got militias running around like it's a free-for-all. These aren't regional problems. They're creating migration waves, destabilizing Europe, and giving terrorist groups recruitment centers that make their wildest dreams come true. Then there's the cyber attacks. Iran-linked cyber actors attacks spiked by 133%. The NSA, CISA, and FBI are screaming. Iranian hackers are targeting the U.S. water utilities, power plants, hospitals, and critical infrastructure. Not might target. They are targeting your local hospital systems going down, your water treatment plant hacked, your power grid flickering. That's not hypothetical. That's what Iran's already doing. Oh, and the Strait of Hormuz handles 25% of global seaborne oil trade. Iran's been threatening to close it, mine it, or just make shipping so dangerous that insurance premiums skyrocket even more. Bloomberg reports that even credible threats cause immediate supply shocks. Oil prices spike. Your grocery bill goes up. Your heating bill goes up. Everything gets more expensive because Iran's playing chess with the world's energy supply. BNEF analysis says oil could hit $91 a barrel in late 2026 if Iran disrupts shipping. So what's the solution? Diplomacy? Iran's not interested. They've watched the US tear up deals before. Sanctions? They've been sanctioned for decades and they're still enriching uranium. Military deterrence? That just escalates things faster. We're stuck in this beautiful, dysfunctional loop. Threats, counter-threats, proxy wars, cyber attacks, and absolutely zero resolution. If the US doesn't respond to Iranian aggression, every other hostile actor takes notes. North Korea, Russia, China, all watching, thinking, oh, so we can just keep pushing? 50 years of half measures and failed diplomacy got us here. Another 50 years of the same strategy will just get us somewhere worse. So here we are, decades into the US-Iran Don't Blink championship, with the world anxiously watching and nobody winning any medals for crisis management. It's a mess, it's expensive, and it's not getting any simpler. But let's be clear, just ignoring Iran hasn't exactly delivered world peace. So maybe the president's approach of actually doing something, anything, it is worth a rational nod. No need for a standing ovation. No need to get misty-eyed and sing the national anthem. Just a little credit. So, here's hoping President Trump can actually keep his cool and steer the ship. Man, this is such a mess. But we are all on this plane together. And we are at 35,000 feet. And I really don't want to jinx my pilot. Well, that took longer than I expected. And I just saw another press conference turn into an ego-fueled soapbox. It was like watching reality TV that suddenly becomes a Shakespeare play. Stay informed, stay realistic, and cross your fingers. He spends more time governing and less time reminding us how underappreciated he is. Because in this saga, nobody's winning Oscars for leadership, but hey, maybe we'll get through it with only a few dramatic monologues. Well, Dakota, TJ, can y'all talk? I'm exhausted. I am going to go sit in a dark room and contemplate my life.
Thanks, Morgan, for that very, very spiritus handoff, my dude. I don't know what I would do without Morgan, bro. But really, let's dive into this week. It has been a very weird and, well, interesting and at times awkward week since we've last spoken to everyone. And quite honestly, before we go diving into all the crazy, let's really address the one thing that is on everybody's mind. What is going on in the Olympics, TJ? Like, bro, did you see the curling incident? Like, they got some drama. Some world-class drama over there. I didn't even know that shit could exist, but here we are, bro. What have you heard?
I mean, I'm still questioning how curling is a sport at this point, but we'll let it ride out.
Breakdancing. Let's not forget that happened.
That has some action, and the curling is just like you push a rock down ice. Wow.
Well, it's apparently there's so many skills of dynamics and you know what you got to do, and there's a lot of bros. It's kind of like watching dodgeball. You remember that movie, right? Dodgeball.
Yeah.
Kind of like watching that. You know,
maybe we should have dodgeball in the Olympics.
I mean, it wouldn't be a far cry at this point. We're breakdancing, curling. I mean, what's next?
Flag football. We already got those added in.
I mean, have you seen the one flag? I'm just kidding. Anyway, we're gonna really kind of dive into this week because it's been something, and you kind of have to laugh at it because it's been that kind of week. We're gonna dive into first Iran. Iran has been in this cycle with America since the 1970s. And we've had our high points, our low points, and our I don't know what the heck is going on points. And I think that we've reached a new low. I don't know what's going on point. The USS Carl Vinson, I believe, is heading over to is already in the region. They're doing some troop redeployments. The president is talking about strikes, and quite honestly, by the time people get to see this, strikes may have happened. I don't know. It's quite a bit going on. With all that being said, I'm looking at this at hopefully with this is one of our normal iterations with Iran, and we actually don't go into a full-scale conflict. But the president seems to be hinting at the fact that he is open and prepared to strikes and continued prolonged strikes. And TJ, hop in anytime, because I served in the military, and I was in during the post 9/11 attacks. So we saw how Iraq and how Afghanistan both affected, and how there was a point where folks were like, why are we not going after Iran since they're the ones providing all the terrorists? But it's concerning to where we are relations wise with the rest of the world. It seems like now is just not the time. But where are you at?
I think we're basically playing the global game of we're not building a bomb. While everyone's out there, checking, their quality timer checks, hoping, we don't have the Fallout show come to real life. Honestly, Iran says it's like enriching on energy for energy. Wow. The enrichment is, giving world trust issues. Like we really don't know what's going on. And then it feels like the centrifuges are spinning faster than diplomats can even schedule, meetings. It's crazy out here.
And there are two parts of, let's be clear, there's two parts of enrichment. And when you're talking heavy water, and this is the type of enrichment that we're looking at, heavy water enrichment, there is no enrichment for energy when it comes to heavy water reactors. That enrichment is solely to use in nuclear devices. And this is something that, you know, the global accord has come to a consensus that Iran can no longer continue to produce these weapons, and yet we continue to seem to inch towards this. My biggest fear, and quite honestly, and this is about the only time you're going to hear me really running and saying anything in support of the president, is that, you know, inaction is definitely not an option here. And so when you're looking at that, you're saying, well, then he's doing the right thing. I don't know that he is. You know, Iran's relationship with the United States is at best murky. At best, at worst, it's tumultuous. And so we don't want to go in with this heavy hand, but at the same time, we need to be firm. There has to be clear red lines. This is also where Barack Obama, the former president of the United States, had also struggled in the past. I'm sure, TJ, you remembered during this time period when the president, then President Barack Obama, went in and said, listen, there's a red line in the calculus. This is that red line in the sand that he was talking about. And that came to the red line, and then he did not do anything once we got past that red line. And a lot of people got him for that. They really got on him for that. And we do see a lot more from this president in a response to Iran, you know, and more so than I think that we've seen from most other presidents since the overthrow of the government back in the 70s, when the Ayatollah took over, and they took the Iran hostage crisis for 422 days. But TJ, what do you think? I mean, we run into a situation where we're in a sustained war. My fear is we're going to be boots on the ground for a very long time. We're going to be in another boondoggle like Iraq. We're going to be trying to stabilize whatever. And this is a much more established government. So this is the other concern that I have. This is a much more established government. This is a much more organized government, unlike Iraq, unlike Afghanistan, where, you know, a strong breeze could overthrow it. Where you
Yeah,
at?
I mean, like I said earlier, we're one bad negotiation away from, you know, us caring more about fallout shelters. I mean,
Yeah.
we know the real tension here isn't that Iran has a bomb. We saw the shelter go down, right?
Right.
It's that the enrichment levels are getting close enough to make the world nervous. I mean, since the JCPA collapse, trust has like really eroded, and unfortunately uranium levels have risen, and
Yeah.
I believe that's the heart of the crisis right there. You know, this isn't
Yeah.
just about news, it's about whether diplomacy can outspace escalation.
Well, and
iran
I think
says
that's
it
go ahead.
Iran really says it's a program that's peaceful. And then everyone else is saying, you know, the timeline to a weapon is really shrinking. And the gap in between is trust. Trust
Mhm.
is the big problem right there.
Well, I think that goes to, you know, where the administration seems to rely more on that peace through strength approach that they continue to tout over and over again. But the problem is that when you have peace through strength, you have to have a strong peace game. And I have yet to see that from this administration. And they will tout that they have ended X amount of wars and saved billions and billions of lives. They have not ended any wars. They have not ended any conflicts. We have seen ceasefires that have since no longer become ceasefires. We have seen cessation of hostilities, which then have just become more hostile again. We see that in Myanmar. We see that in the Russian and Ukrainian war, where we've been trying to get these ceasefires through, we've been trying to get a peace deal accord going, and they just haven't been able to pull that through. And this is one of the things that the president campaigned on, saying that he's going to end these wars day one. The war with Russia and Ukraine would end. That has since lapsed. We're on day 377. So my hope for peace through strength is not there. I call question whether or not the Secretary of State has the ability to bring that peace to the table after the strength has been delivered. Because there's one thing that I can say, and that being said, is that the Department of Defense, Department of War, whatever you want to call it, they brought a lot of that extra oomph when it comes to the strength part, but the follow through is just not there. What's your thoughts on that follow through game there, and also within the regards of the Secretary of State just being able to broker that deal? I think that he's just not strong enough to do that.
Yeah, no, I think what I keep getting from our administration as a whole here is they keep saying stay calm, and there's only so much calm we can have, because we're in a pressure cooker right now. Uranium is saying hold my tea, and we're literally just like, how long can we stay calm here as they keep enriching?
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be one of these stickling points that we're going to continue to see. And as this develops, and it was almost a foregone thought, a couple of days ago, earlier in the week on Wednesday, that they were going to go in by Saturday. That has not happened. However, where we're at right now, we could be doing it right now while we're filming this. We don't know yet as of this point, but as from what I can tell, it looks like that they're still redistributing troops and moving deployments to the advantageous areas for follow-ups. And it's going to be a thing that we're going to have to continue to follow even after any inevitable strikes do happen. We'll have to continue to just follow that. But all of this is on the heels of the president getting ready to deliver the State of the Union, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But again, it's quite a bit. Any other thoughts that you wanted to add into this there, TJ?
No, not really. I mean, at this point, the only thing that is moving faster is enrichment, and then everyone's anxiety.
Absolutely. With that being said, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to get into the DHS shutdown, this mini shutdown that we're in right now. This disagreement between Congress, where we're looking, where we might be, and what that looks like going forward here. So we'll do that right after this break.
My mama used to say that a house divided against itself cannot stand. And lately, Washington's been looking less like a house and more like a construction site with nobody agreeing on the blueprints. We're going to talk about the last two government shutdowns, not just what happened, but why it matters and what it says about us as a nation. Because these weren't just budget disputes, they were windows into the soul of American democracy. And what we saw looking through those windows, it wasn't pretty. Let's start with the first one. October 1st, 2025. The government ran out of money. Now, Congress is supposed to pass appropriations bills, 12 of them to be exact, that fund the entire federal government for the fiscal year. It's not complicated. It's not optional. It's the basic job of Congress. But in October 2025, Congress couldn't get it done. The central issues, the immigration fight, also known as the thing they always fight about. Republicans wanted billions for the border. Democrats wanted protections for immigrants. You know what would have been wild? If they'd, compromised. But that's not how Congress works anymore. Because compromise is apparently a 4-letter word. Oh wait, it's 9 letters. Math is hard. The real drama are the ACA subsidies, also known as healthcare that actually works. But here's where it gets spicy. While everyone was yelling about the border, Republicans quietly tried to gut healthcare subsidies. You know, the thing that helps 13 million Americans afford health insurance. No big deal. Republicans, these subsidies are wasteful government spending. Democrats, people will literally die without them. Republicans, that's their problem. Democrats, no, it's our problem. Congress, shut it down. So the numbers, what a shutdown actually means. By October 1st, Congress had failed to pass appropriations bills or even a continuing resolution, a temporary measure to keep the government running. The machinery of government just stopped. For 43 days, from October 1st through November 12th, 2025, the government was shut down. That's 6 weeks of pure chaos. The second shutdown, January 31st to February 3rd, 2026. The sequel nobody asked for. Just 3 months later, we're back. Because Congress learned nothing. It's like watching someone burn their hand on a stove, wait a few months, and then do it again. What happened? You ask. Well, Minneapolis. Minneapolis happened. Not that it was not fucked, before it was just the icing on the cake. The procedural comedy, Congress needed to pass 12 bills. They passed 6. That's a 50% success rate. If you got 50% on a test, you'd fail. Congress gets to shut down the government. And then, plot twist, the House delayed the vote because of a 72-hour rule. So while they were debating whether to debate, federal funding lapsed. It's like arguing about whether to fix the roof while it's raining. What shut down, also known as your favorite services, State Department, diplomacy on pause, Treasury, money management, who needs it, HHS, the agency that runs the ACA, so healthcare, again. TSA, airport security lines that already sucked, got worse. Labor, education, transportation, all the stuff that actually helps people. The healthcare angle, because we're still talking about this. HHS shutdown meant reduced staffing at CMS, the agency that administers the ACA. So millions of Americans trying to figure out if they could afford health insurance got nothing. Just uncertainty and dial tones. How it ended, Trump signed a temporary funding bill on February 3rd, but it only funded DHS for 2 more weeks. So basically, Congress kicked the can down the road again. It's like paying your mortgage with a credit card. Sure, it works for now, but you're just delaying the inevitable disaster. The government didn't fully shut down. It partially shut down, which is like saying you're partially bankrupt or mostly pregnant. It doesn't really work that way, but Congress tried anyway. The agencies that got the axe, aka your favorite services, now offline. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, Border Patrol, TSA, ICE, Customs, all running on fumes. The impact, aka how to ruin everyone's day. It's early to say, but TSA and airport security, lines will get longer. The blame game, also known as whose fault is this? Republicans. Democrats are holding national security hostage over healthcare. Democrats. Republicans won't protect immigrants or extend healthcare subsidies. Congress. Crickets. America. Can you guys just do your jobs? You know what's wild? Congress spent more time arguing about whether to fund the government than it would have taken to actually fund it. It's like watching someone spend an hour debating whether to take out the trash instead of just taking it out. My mama used to say, "Don't put off until tomorrow. what you can do today. Congress apparently never met my mama. Dakota, you are up. If you can figure this crap out, you are better than me.
Welcome back, guys. And Morgan, thank you for that intro and bringing us up to speed on all that, the information that we know about the DHS and this shutdown. TJ, welcome back into this. We're going to get into really kind of where we stand. The DHS shutdown, or this partial shutdown, is what it's officially called. It's a partial government shutdown, but it's coined the DHS shutdown at this point. Because it is literally the only department that is affected. It's anything that falls under the umbrella of DHS is just unfunded. That does mean that multiple agencies are going without paychecks right now. This is where the Republicans have been kind of sticking it to the Democrats for the inability to broker a deal. But quite honestly, and this is where I stand, I think that the Democrats are standing right where they need to at this point. And TJ, you can interject at any point, but I think that where we're standing right now is we caved when it came to healthcare, which we shouldn't have. And I think that has been echoed across the nation and partially the world, where the Democrats had a more poignant argument of saying, listen, you need to make a deal. And that deal was not made. And we've watched those healthcare subsidies sunset just recently, and costing Americans X amount more in the coverage of healthcare. And quite honestly, where the Trump administration uses, well, they're getting all that money back in their taxes, but they're not, because they're not getting that money back. You're still taxing the tips, you're still taxing the overtime. They just have to claim it on a refund, and they're only getting partial amounts of that back. So if you've done way more overtime than you're getting back, you're still losing that money. And for those who are currently going through hard times, whether it be student loans, whether it be whatever may be back owed to the IRS from previous years that you've worked out payment plans for, these people are not seeing that money. And this is money that they could have used and could have helped them in combating their debt. However, the government's just holding on to it. TJ, tell me where your thoughts are, because quite honestly, I think that this is that moment where the Democrats need to stand up. And I think it's going to be a metal meets the road for them.
Yeah, I think Washington's favorite move is, argue about security and then defund it. I mean, nothing says secure the homeland like not paying the people that actually secure it. I mean, for the people that don't know, this affects agencies like TSA, Customs, Border Patrol, FEMA, Immigration Services. These are essential workers that still report to duty, but without pay. While political leaders are, out there arguing over border enforcement and asylum rules and executive authority, this is Congress not agreeing on border policy, so they shut down the actual agency that runs the border.
And I think there's something to be said about that too. Because the shutdown of this actual agency that's running it, however, these guys aren't getting a paycheck. I feel as though this is the only way that the Democrats really have a poignant voice at this point of power to say, listen, you've ignored the populace as a whole. And we've seen Republican governors and we've seen Democratic governors and we've seen, middle of the road governors, everybody from the right, the left, the center, all come together on this and saying, listen, you've ignored us and you've done so for the last year. And we're not appreciative of that. But continue. That's where my thought process is anyway.
Yeah, it seems like to me, national security has become like a political pawn in a sense. And, the people guarding the airports and borders are paying the tab, like you said, in unpaid overtime. We're in a world where, political signal matters more than security. And they argue hard on TV, but let TSA agents go weeks without paychecks. I feel like this is maybe the third time, in this presidency that this has happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the second shutdown that we've had. However, actually, no, this is the third. This is the third shutdown because we did have the shutdown that was more effective before this, and then we had the partial shutdown after that lapse. So this is the third of this term, and this would be the second longest of this term at this point. The first shutdown obviously was the longest shutdown in the history of the United States government, which is impressive in itself. And only rivaled at that point by the last shutdown that he had, which is the one where it was the longest again. And so he's had in both of his administrations the two longest shutdowns. So there is that.
Yeah, I think nothing screams responsible governance like shutting down home security while you're claiming to care about the homeland.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we've got a lot going on, and we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to talk about the State of the Union when we get back, and we're going to get into a lot of the domestic issues.
Look, nobody wants to spend their evening talking about the Epstein files. In a fair world, the people involved would just be arrested and we could all move on to arguing about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. But we don't live in that world. So here we go. So the Epstein files dropped. Again. 3 million pages, I'm not exaggerating. 3 million. That's longer than most Stephen King novels, and apparently this is the final release. Sure, we've heard that one before. Who's who in the fallout? Let's call it what it is. Gross old men and the people who enabled them. Prince Andrew, arrested. Finally. After all those I don't sweat interviews, the only thing sweating now is Buckingham Palace's PR team. Peter Mandelson, out as ambassador, under investigation. Turns out networking wasn't just about LinkedIn endorsements. And then you've got your US senators and CEOs suddenly announcing they're spending more time with family. Translation? They're lawyering up and deleting emails faster than you can say permanent record. We're talking about George Mitchell, former Senate Majority Leader John Kerry, former Secretary of State. His name's in the travel logs, but sure, he denies everything. And there's more. Congressional sources say at least 6 sitting or former senators are implicated. But their names, still redacted. Because transparency is apparently for the little people. Then you've got your business titans, Elon Musk, referenced in emails and flight logs. Bill Gates, acknowledged meetings, denies wrongdoing. Les Wexner, Richard Branson, Howard Lutnick, Steve Tisch, Casey Wasserman, all names that suddenly don't look so good next to Epstein files. And the banks? Oh man. The banks are shocked to find out their VIP clients were moving money for a sex trafficking ring. Who could have possibly guessed? Everyone could have guessed. Now let's talk about what the governments are doing about this. The UK promises a full inquiry, which, if we're being honest, means a lot of sternly worded letters and maybe a new committee with a fancy name. Congress. They're holding hearings. Because nothing says justice like C-SPAN at 2 a.m. The UN wants an international investigation, so expect a strongly worded hashtag any day now. Meanwhile, survivors are out in the streets demanding real justice, and the most powerful people in the world are just issuing statements about how deeply troubled they are by their own emails. And the media? Some outlets are working overtime, others are still fact-checking whether billionaires actually have private jets. Spoiler alert, they do. So here's what's happening. People are furious. Trust in institutions, all-time low. And the governments. They're mostly just hoping the news cycle moves on before anyone with actual power faces real consequences. But hey, at least we got some resignations out of it. Progress, right? If you're waiting for the system to fix itself, grab a snack. This is going to be a long show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Capital Discourse. I am still here with our my co-host, TJ. We're going to be getting into the upcoming State of the Union here on Tuesday. I think it's going to be very important for us to really kind of talk about this in depth. There are multi-layers to this. As we were talking about earlier, we're talking about the international side of things. We've got Iran, which is going to be a major factor. You've got terrorism abroad, and not just focused in Iran, which is also going to play into this and a lot of national security. But we're also going to have the mini shutdown that is also in play. You know, Congress is in recess. They should be back on some point during the day Monday. But again, with the snowstorm that's hitting right now, you know, that's also likely to be delayed for them to come back in. So we may not see them until Tuesday on the State of the Union. You know, and coming back in the middle of a shutdown, so you're almost foregone the ability at this point to say, okay, we're going to be in a shutdown. A deal needs to be made. We need to get all parts of the government back open. What does that look like? But also, you know, we're looking at a lot of issues domestically. We're looking at the rampant abuse from CBP, the Customs and Border Patrol Services, as well as immigration and customs enforcement, and their continued aggression in cities. You know, they have started to draw down their troops, as they're calling it, in Minneapolis and in Minnesota as a whole, and starting to redistribute them. But there is a talk of an expectation of them being in Baltimore at a high clip at this point now, and also in places like Philadelphia, where the governor of Philadelphia was on the Sunday morning news shows talking about, you know, we're prepared for them if they come. We're asking them not to come, but we are prepared for them. So that is another thing that is also a very, very poignant hit. You know, the president is going to be delivering this in a very embattled time as well, because in part of the Epstein files. You know, we're starting to see a major fallout within the Epstein files abroad. You see Prince Andrew has been arrested. You see that people are forced to resign and step away from the roles. And yet, while this administration has continued to employ people and continue to operate as though that this was not a big deal, and folks that are with them who had associations with Jeffrey Epstein, even after he was convicted. You've got Howard Lutnick, who has continuously been in contact with Jeffrey Epstein until afterwards. Yet none of this yet to say the fact that the president himself says he still may throw a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, which is also another big problem, I think, on this end. You know, so you've got a very contentious domestic home front that he's going to have to deal with, and a very, very, very angry electorate. His polls right now are at the lowest that they have been from both terms, and it took him 4 years to get this low the last time, and it took him only a year this time. And I think that speaks volumes to the fact that 4 years when he was in office, for 2 of those years, we were in the middle of the country's worst health crisis in a century. And so that's another piece to a very important part of this jigsaw puzzle that's put together. And I think that it's also starting to play out in the electoral front. As a lot of special elections have been held, you've seen wins in Texas by Democrats that were Republican-led cities and areas and districts for decades, and we're talking back since Kennedy, and yet here we are with that. And TJ, what's your thought? Because I mean, I could go on about all of this for quite a bit, but the end of the day, it's a lot, and it's a lot that the president is going to have to answer to the American people for. And I think that anything less than a strong message of saying that, listen, there's a lot of things that have been screwed up, and this is what we're doing to correct that, is not going to land well with not only his base but also the electorate as a whole heading into these midterms that we're going to see later this year. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what's shocking to me isn't just, the abuse itself. The FBI has been sitting on this mountain of evidence for years. I mean, high-powered lawyers, like politicians, business titans, even like you said, royals like Prince Andrew, all surface in ways we are now seeing clearly. I applaud Europe. I applaud Europe because they're moving faster than the U.S. I mean, reopening investigations and holding people accountable, while Washington is giving us a painfully slow response. You have the Epstein files that aren't just a crime story; they're a window into how power and wealth can bend justice in here in America, at least. um how influence protects some, while victims wait decades for acknowledgement. And even now we're only just about scratching the surface. It's like, what's really going on here?
I mean, like, really, we're talking about this wealth and justice in imbalance. We're seeing how the UK is responding to the former Crown Prince, Andrew, and his misconduct with the Epstein issues. Now we're seeing an inaction in the United States, and I'm both disturbed and also disgusted by the inaction of this government. I mean, Howard Lutnick was chilling with the dude afterwards. The emails that this man sent, I mean, like, I think one of them he was talking about, like, hopefully we'll get past this and we'll get to play or something. Like, I don't know. Oh, no, that was Andrew. But there were emails this guy sent to the island saying, hey, like, what's going on? Like, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I want to say the Epstein files aren't just old news. They're really like a mirror for Washington's priorities. And with the State of the Union address coming, every leader stepping to that podium will be judged. Not just on policy, but on how their power plays aligning with justice or avoiding it.
Yeah. But I also want to really kind of bring light to something that a lot of people are not talking about. It's not who's in the Epstein files, it's who's not. And I think that that's really kind of important to say, because the push for the Epstein files to be released was, we were expecting this treasure trove of Democrats to be inside of these Epstein files. And we haven't gone through all of these files. This 3 million is quite a bit of files to go through. But at the same time, you're looking at the people we're expecting to be in there. You're expecting Joe Biden, you're expecting Barack Obama, you're expecting all these guys. and we haven't heard anything about that. But yet we're seeing all sorts of Republicans. We're seeing these business leaders that were pushing for this, and now all of a sudden they're like, I don't want this out there. It's not a big deal, and I have a problem with that.
Yeah, I feel like the political fallout is still rippling.
Yeah.
The ones that were pointing the fingers.
It's a political shit show. It's a total shit show.
Yeah, the ones that were pointing the fingers are now pointing back at themselves without even actually doing the action.
Facts. I mean, these guys are sitting here, and Donald Trump campaigned on this. He campaigned on this. He said, we need to release the file. We're going to lock up Joe because he's crooked. He's in the files. Obama's in the file. And everybody was like, yeah, he's probably in there. And then what? Who's in the files? Who's in the files? And
it makes me laugh because I realize why the Republicans were so held against supporting him in the beginning when he was talking about doing these things.
Well, it's because they knew they were all in the files too. I mean, that's what it came down to. They were in the files. They're like, no, bro, you're in the files. I'm in the files. They aren't in the files. Are you delusional? I mean, really, everything that this president has done is delusional shit. I mean, he sent a hospital ship to Greenland on Saturday night, Sunday morning, and said, hey, I'm giving you a hospital ship for your illnesses that you are treating over there. And from what I understand, it was one U.S. soldier who had to be shipped out because he was sick. And the prefect, the governor of Greenland was like, no, bro, no, I don't want that. We don't need it. We're good. We got our people.
Yeah, I think it's gonna, really be hard to give a speech about law and order when the documents about, elite crime are like spilling over in your backyard. Like the State of the Union is gonna feel like the president is going to be talking about unity, and then the Epstein files are going to remind us why, some people may never face the consequences of it.
I mean, we're going to get into this. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to get into a little bit further of the economic outlook, what we're looking at with after this post State of the Union, what we're hoping to hear, and we'll kind of give our final thoughts for the day. All right. We'll be back after this.
Let me ask you, when was the last time you looked at your bank account and thought, wow, the economy is really working for me? Don't worry, I'll wait. If you're in the South or Midwest, well, you're not drowning yet. Things are relatively stable, jobs are holding steady, and life feels manageable. It's not thrilling, but it's not a disaster either. You're treading water while others are sinking. Don't celebrate too hard, though. Stability is just another word for waiting for the other shoe to drop. But if your city has more Wi-Fi hotspots than livestock, prepare yourself. The economy may have just left you on red. Job growth? Only if you're into heavy lifting or oil rigs. Wage growth? Sure, but it's still losing the race against your rent. And inflation? That's the guest who refuses to leave the party. So tonight we're digging into the numbers, the regions, and why your paycheck seems to be on a crash diet. Grab your popcorn, assuming it's still in your budget, and buckle up as we take a tour of America's economic theme park. Spoiler, the roller coaster's got a few too many drops. Let's talk geography, because apparently where you live now determines your economic destiny. Who are the winners? South and Upper Midwest. Places like South Carolina, Texas, Arkansas, Minnesota. These regions are adding 2 to 4% jobs annually. Who are the losers? Great Plains, Kansas, Montana, ouch. Pacific Northwest, parts of Illinois and Indiana. They're losing 3 to 4% of jobs. It's like the economy looked at a map and said, nope, not you. So if you're thinking about relocating, the economy has very strong opinions about where you should go. Here's the thing about 2026's job outlook. It's technically positive. We're adding 1.5 to 2 million jobs. Great. Except tech is consolidating, finance is sweating, and consumers, they're buying essentials, not luxuries. If you work in tech, congratulations. You're part of the sector rotation. That's economists speak for we're laying you off. The winners. Industrials, plus 16.1%. Energy, plus 22.3%. Consumer defensive, plus 13.3%. These sectors are booming. AI infrastructure, oil prices, people buying beans instead of caviar, it's all working out. The losers, tech, minus 3.5%. Finance, minus 3.5%. Consumer cyclical, minus 3.3%. Here's the part nobody wants to talk about. Unemployment is going up. We're looking at 4.5 to 5% nationally by the end of 2026. That's up from about 4% now. But here's the kicker. In tech hubs like San Francisco, San Jose, and New York, you're looking at 5 to 6%. In government-dependent metros, 5 to 7%. So yes, jobs are being added, just not where the people are. Let's talk about your paycheck. Nominal wage growth, 2 to 3% in 2026. Sounds good, right? Except inflation is running 2.5 to 3%. So your real wage growth, basically flat. In some places, negative. Energy prices are up. Small businesses are raising prices. 58% of them plan to. Consumers are expecting inflation to stick around. And the Fed, they're trying to keep rates steady while inflation stays above their 2% target. Translation: your money is worth slightly less than it was, and that's the good scenario. GDP growth is slowing. We're looking at 1.5 to 2% in 2026, down from 2 to 2.5% in 2025. Why? Fiscal headwinds. The government is spending more on interest payments every year. That money isn't going to infrastructure, education, or anything that builds the economy. It is going to interest payments. It's like your household budget, except the household is the entire country, and the credit card bill is getting bigger every month. So what's the fix? Here's what economists are saying needs to happen. Immediate actions: invest in workforce development in declining metros, create emergency job programs, think infrastructure, manufacturing, accelerate retraining before layoffs hit, expand unemployment insurance in hard-hit regions, longer-term fixes, fiscal reform, entitlements, revenue, the whole thing. Bring manufacturing back from Asia through incentives and tariffs. Invest in productive infrastructure, AI, energy, manufacturing. Address supply-side constraints. In other words, we need to fix the economy before it fixes itself the hard way. Here's the reality. The US economy isn't growing. It's limping along. Yes, the South and Midwest are holding steady, but that's not growth. That's survival. Meanwhile, tech hubs are hemorrhaging jobs. Government metros are bracing for layoffs. And the Great Plains, they're already in free fall. We're not talking about uneven growth here. We're talking about regional collapse happening in real time. Without immediate intervention, and I mean now, we're looking at widening inequality, rising unemployment that'll hit hard in 2027, and long-term stagnation that could take a decade to recover from. The window for manageable solutions is closing fast. After that, we're looking at the hard way. So that's the economic outlook for 2026, cautiously negative, regionally divided, and fiscally pressured. But hey, don't just take my word for it. Coming up, our panel of experts will break down what all these numbers actually mean for your wallet, your job prospects, and whether stable-ish is the new American dream. Stay tuned. This discussion might be the only thing tonight that's actually on the rise.
All right, and welcome back in, guys. As we're wrapping up this conversation on the State of the Union, we're looking at the economic overlook of how the United States is overall. We've seen the Supreme Court now issue a ruling that says that the tariffs that the president issued at the major Rose Garden, well, it's not the Rose Garden anymore. It's this terrace, the Rose Terrace, were unconstitutional because it falls to the Congress to be able to institute taxes. And so when the Congress was cut out of that loop, the president circumvented what is clearly stated, that the taxes and tariffs are given to the power to the Congress. And that is how the equal representation happens, with the people get their say. And the president doing what he's done is overstepping that bounds. And so now we're looking at a different set of tariffs now, because after the Supreme Court said that, hey, we're going to go ahead and, say no. He said, well, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And this was through IEPA. And now we're looking at the next set of emergency tariffs that he can throw through. And I believe he's got 150 days, or it's 150 or 170 days, where he can influence these tariffs upon the rest of the world. So he's done 15% now, where he's saying that the tariffs are going to hit everybody. And then also on top of the other tariffs that he's already had in place. I think that we're in a mess. I think that when they go to figure out how they're going to either repay or not repay this money, it's going to spend years in court. And I think that that's where it needs to be. But we need to figure out how to untangle this mess. But I don't know, TJ, where are you at? Because, tariffs are a small piece, but it's a massive piece. Because what we're looking at here is we've got a president who is inflicting bodily harm onto this economy, both to farmers, manufacturers, to the consumer, and to the American public as a broad. And I don't see much of an upside. So where's your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like, honestly, the economy is like steady-ish. Like, it's slow, expensive, and precarious. It's like jogging on a treadmill, but your credit card balance keeps climbing. You're moving, but it doesn't feel like progress. Yeah. Like, growth right now is modest. We're not booming, but we're not crashing either. Consumers,
it's
like,
precarious descent.
Yeah, like you said, consumers are still spending, businesses are still investing, but everyone is cautious. Like,
yeah,
inflation, I believe, has cooled from its peak. So the Fed is like hitting their pause on rate hikes. But let's really be real. Your rent, groceries didn't just suddenly get cheaper. The job market, it looks strong on paper right now, but unemployment is still low. Like,
but
wages,
honestly, has inflation truly cooled? You can throw water on a fire and it can reignite. And I'm not certainly sure that inflation is truly cooled. I think that we're looking at this false economy because we just threw a lot of pieces here into play that did not work before, and hope that they'll work long term. But I think it's also stark to say, as you were saying, it's like the economy is okay-ish. But in reality, it's a stark difference from Trump 1.0 to 2.0. Because Trump 2.0 is not as strong in the economy as Trump 2.0. I'm sorry, Trump 1.0 is a lot stronger than we see in Trump 2.0. And that's a problem. I think that's a huge problem. Donald Trump has not really kind of done his signature move within the economy, which everybody really and truly, I think, where he won the election is the economy. It's always about the money, and he sold that, and we haven't seen a positive response.
Yeah, I mean, Americans, are still carrying, record levels of debt. And, Washington is like, they can't even keep the lights on without a political fight over spending. Like, recently we were talking about the DHS shutdown. And trust me, global issues are just another wild card, from China slowing like the economy to conflicts overseas, US markets, and everyday folks are, we're not immune to it.
No, we're not. I mean, and that goes to all of the other pieces that are a part of this puzzle too. I mean, you looking at Venezuela, we still don't know what we're doing over there. We just haven't talked about it. It's still a problem. It's there, but we've got so many other issues right now that Venezuela, I'm like, yeah, we got that problem there. It's festering, but we put some ointment on it, and we got to go deal with the other problems. It's like it's like watching that new show, The Pit. You fix one problem and 30 more come through the door. It's like, this is the longest day ever, the longest shift ever. And I'm not quite sure what's going to walk through the door next.
Yeah, I mean, truly, I wouldn't even say they fixed the problems. I mean, we had the problem with homelessness in DC, and I still go downtown in front of the Capitol and see homeless people sleeping on vents. Like,
well, that's to that statement. That's like that is literally like when the cameras are there, we're like, yay, yeah. We're gonna sit there and say that it's not a problem because the cameras are there, and we made it look pretty over here. We're gonna point the camera over here, but don't look over here. Don't look in Southeast. Look in Northwest. I'm gonna go have dinner over here. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, it still troubles me why National Guard is in DC. But back to my point earlier, the economy is steady-ish, but steady-ish does not pay your bills or shrink your debt.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's where it's at. I think that's where we are. I think that's where the economy is, and you're not going to hear too much difference from my output on this either. It's steady-ish, and we could go really badly very quickly, but we're going to need to see what happens. But I can say this to what you're saying. It troubles me that the National Guard is still in DC, but I think that they don't know what they're doing in DC still either.
Oh no, they're dancing on the corners.
Literally making TikTok videos. I mean, I've seen more National Guard member making TikTok videos with the residents, which, I mean, sure, it's a good thing, because at least they're not out harassing folks.
UNITY.
Why is so many people from X, Y, and Z walking the streets of DC making TikTok videos? It's not making DC any safer, because the crime's still happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's still very much happening.
It's just quieter.
And MPD is up to deal with it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching, MPD dealing with a crime, and National Guard on the next block. They were there popping Zins and smoking a stogie. I was like, all right, well, you guys surely did your job, I guess.
Bravo, take a bow. Except it's still happening. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I still hear the crash outs every day. You
Yeah.
know, it's a whole thing.
They're having more
Uh,
fun on U
it-
Street than the drunk people are.
oh my God, it's so true, so true. But there's nothing really for the National Guard to do. They're not allowed to engage. Why?
Mhm.
So why are they there if they're not going to do anything anyway? That
All I
being
can say
said,
is, welcome to the American economic reality.
it's facts. It's facts. But I mean, with all that being said, you know, we've got a State of the Union coming up here, guys. We're going to be covering the State of the Union. So you're going to look for a lot of stuff from us that'll be coming out in the next several days and after the State of the Union. So look out for that. We're going to have several interviews for our next show. Overall, my take and my approach here is that it's a crazy week. It's a lot to take in. Take in and deal with what we can. We'll process what we can, and what we can't, we'll leave for another day. But at the end of the day, where we stand as we're looking at a very serious time internationally. Peace through strength. This approach is really going to be put to the test internationally. We've seen the Board of Peace, and it's supposed to be this quasi replacement for the UN. We've seen now issues in the economy. We've seen this stagnation, and what feels to be could be a potential fall off. You know, not a lot of good signs inside of the economy. You know, people are saving at record levels, and furthermore, we're looking at this mentality nationwide where Americans are guarded, upset, and frustrated, and they're voting with all of that energy. We're seeing it in special elections, and as we approach the midterms, I believe we're going to see it again. And my advice to the Democratic Party will continue to be, once the midterms do come around, and if they do flip the House, if they do flip the Senate, or if they flip one or the other, the first thing you can't do is rush into these impeachment trials. The people want to see action. This is why the Democrats lost in the very beginning, and so I believe that is where we need to be, is at a point where we're showing action, and that things can get done. But that all being said, you know, TJ, what are your last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my initial thoughts are, just stay alert, stay aware, and stay updated, because anything can flip in 2 seconds now, and we're only in the first year of this. So I know it seems like we're at the end of it, but no, we're in the beginning, and there's only so much more that can happen before topsy turvy.
So true, so true, so true. I like it's exhausting because it feels like it's been a full 4 years already. It's only been one. And so with that being said, we're going to be continuing to update throughout the week when it comes to the midterm elections, the responses from the Republican, the responses from the Democrats, and quite honestly, it's going to be interesting to see what the Republican response is to the State of the Union with such high division within the party itself. You know, they can sing unity all the live long day, but I think that this is the highest chance where you're not going to see a kumbaya response from the Republicans, and especially if he goes and rails hard against tariffs. You may see a moderated unity approach of saying, listen, we're here to work with you. You should come to the table. And if we see that type of message, it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens. Before we cut out today, I wanted to take this last little bit and recognize that with the passing of Reverend Jackson this last week. He's a fierce fighter within the African American community. Ran for president, did not secure the nomination, but was there on the ground with Dr. King and through the entire civil rights movement. Has been a fierce fighter for the former president, Barack Obama, and has been there through a lot of trauma and helped guide a community of people through some very turbulent times. I think it's very poignant to bring him up, especially in a time like right now, where we are in a very turbulent time, and I think that it goes to someone who else he was with is John Lewis, where he would say, listen, you got to get into some good trouble. I know that they got into a lot of good trouble. And I think it's very important for Americans to realize at this point that we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of inner work to do, a lot of growth to have. And I think that one of the things that we need to do and understand is that we don't have an immediate growth or immediate response when it comes to some things, and that some things do take time. And that instant gratification that sometimes takes work, and it doesn't happen that next day. And some things you just have to really work hard at. And so I think that those two were very important to have a voice in, and to really show that. So I wanted to bring light to that. And I know that we've lost quite a few of rather substantial voices in the last year. But his is, one that affected community that I grew up in. But that being said, I'd like to wish everybody a good day, and we will keep you updated, and we will keep you informed throughout the week with the State of the Union and moving forward. So thanks for joining us on this episode of Capital Discourse. See you.
Let's go! Level up! Stronger!
I grind through the struggle, sweat in my veins, iron in will, I'm breaking these chains, heart like a lion, mind on attack, every setback, I'm never looking back, symphony rising, destiny's calling, every rep, every step, I'm never falling.